Welcome everybody to Day Drinking with David. Running a little late today if you are following the schedule, although most people aren't. I am very excited to be here. The old Insta Live has changed its format a little. I'm a bit confused, but I see it now. Okay, there are my comments. Oh, beautiful. What a dream this is. Hi everybody. This is super fun. We've got some really exciting products to look at today. It's just me. I'll never forget about you, Whiskey Badger. I guess some people are paying attention to the schedule. I'm very sorry. Got caught up at the store. A rare occasion. I actually had to go to the store, and there's no place to do this there, so I had to come back, and I got a whole process here. But we're tasting a very exciting new distillery, Bimber. Bimber. When I first heard this name, I just couldn't believe the name. I mean, I couldn't believe it. How silly. But it isn't silly. It's really serious, apparently. These whiskeys have been getting praise all throughout Europe. They're not available in the United States yet. For their quality, of course. The distillery was started in London in 2016. They laid down their first cask in, I believe, May of that year. And they've just been getting so much love from all the people. I was introduced to them by my good friends in Dornoch, the Thompson brothers. And hopefully, not hopefully, I mean, if everything goes... Bimber, keep yelling Bimber. It actually, the louder you say it, the better it sounds. It says right on the label, single malt London whiskey, which is pretty cool. These are all single casks. We will be selecting casks. Their production is unfortunately miniature, but they're growing, and the reviews I've seen have been like so laudatory, even to the point of being like almost silly, in terms of just the amount of young whiskey out there these days, and people sort of calling this the very, very best of the best. I think Phil and Simon, they haven't released anything yet, but they're probably up there. But these guys are doing it the old school way. The way they described it to me was they wanted to be like Chichibu, which is a lofty goal. And Phil and Simon are doing some nutso stuff. I think, that, and their scale makes Bimber look borderline industrial. But, it's about doing it the right way, the old way. It's like sort of what's the point? And there are a lot of new distilleries, and, not all of them are bad. It's not a bad thing per se. But a lot of new distilleries are sort of like, hey, we're new. Why wouldn't we use the best, newest technology to create the most efficient whiskey possible? Because in the industry, efficiency has been basically equated with quality. That's what the Scottish News says. And to be honest, even many of the new distilleries, they're not going to be able to. They're not going to be a Bruichladdich. They're not going to be able to build a brand quite like that, or even a Kilchoman. And they're in some respects going to have to rely on a bulk product, a blending market that the big distilleries rely on. That means they need consistency, and they need efficiency, and they need their spirit to be affordable, so that they can sell it at a young age and make it financially doable. Yes, the whiskeys will be cheaper than Chichibu, although, Chichibu is mostly, it's expensive, of course, but it's mostly expensive on the secondary. I mean, that's not true. Actually, the single casks are $300 to $400. It is what it is. But they will be cheaper than Chichibu. They will be available at KL exclusively to start. I hope. I pray. And I'm really, really excited to taste them. They're also like super cool guys, like super into this stuff. And they have apparently a very, very well-made virgin oak single malt, which if you know me at all, you know that I am not a huge fan of first use barrels for Scotch production, but apparently what they're doing is pretty well thought out. We're going to start with the ex-bourbon today. This is a single cask. Everything is bottled single cask. I'm sure that'll change in the future, but we'll be buying single cask as well. These were distilled in... Do you have a distillation date? No, I don't have a distillation date. Well, they're probably 3-ish years old. It's floor malted, hand mashed, fermented slowly, 7 days. Wooden washbacks. That is pretty long. Direct fire to heat the copper pot stills. That is shocking. I didn't know that was legal in the UK. And because I've been told that it wasn't, but I guess Glenfiddich does a direct fire with gas, and of course our dear friends at Springbank. I can smell it even just the top open. They had to remove their direct fire element, and in lieu of that, because in the UK things are illegal only if they are specifically prohibited. So Springbank was able to mimic the flavor profile that the direct fire still distillation creates using basically a flamethrower, a diesel flamethrower. Hello, and that's how Springbank works. They shoot burning diesel fuel at their stills, which doesn't distill, but it does create that thing. And if you ever been to Springbank, they'll let you know. There's a bell on the back of the still, which is connected to a chain that scrapes the inside. And if that chain gets caught, then the heat gets such that there's potential for explosion. So they always warn you, if the bell isn't ringing and the still is running, it's time to get out of there. But we're going to start with the wonderful Bimber, bottled on May 27th of this year, cask number 12, bottle number 41 of 264, bottle at 58.7. Really excited to finally taste these, and even more excited to sell them, because this has been definitely one of the distilleries on the radar, as they say. And it's weird. Every year we go to Scotland. Go Dodgers! Thanks for that. We go to Scotland looking for new stuff, and that's how we met Phil and Simon a couple years ago, and all the other people we've ever worked with, mostly. And this year we couldn't go, so it's a different world. Okay, yeah, this is very chocolatey on the nose. Malt driven for sure, but doesn't feel young per se. Definitely using some really nice active casks. You can see the color already by Scottish standards. For bourbon, it's relatively dark. Of course, this is not Scotch. Yeah, serious little nose. Oh, I forgot to get my water. We'll just go. Okay, that's pretty tasty stuff. Definitely has a little bit of that punchiness you'd expect from a young whiskey. The bourbon element is very upfront. Lots of sweet caramel, but there's also an acidity. I wonder if that has to do with the long fermentations. A structure, not really acidity, but a brightness to it that is really lovely. Very nice balance between the malt and the... Sergio's here. Hey, welcome, Sergio. Nice balance between the malt and the wood here. Again, very active cask. I need to do some more research about what their warehousing situation is. I'd assume since they're doing everything traditionally, it's dunnage style. But it's difficult to find the space for that. This is opening up nicely. Bimber. So the Dodgers lost last night. It was not a bad game, actually. Pretty exciting game, to be honest. But, get them next time. K&L is San Francisco based, and I'm sure many people in my company are upset that I'm wearing a Dodger hat because they're all Giants fans. I mean, I get harangued. Although, there was a time when that was a good thing. Not these days. It was a good game. Snell is ridiculous. He can't pitch every game, though. Come on. Is that Kalina? This just keeps going, guys. I really need to get some water, so I'll be just 2 seconds. I retrieved my trusty pipette, so now I don't have to use my Vigio glass. And we're gonna do just a couple drops to see what. Ooh, very oily reaction. Take it extremely well. Just disappears right in there. Ooh, that opens up with some citrus now. Mookie, Bellinger, Seager. Well, yeah, I mean, Mookie's awesome, but I'm kind of a Bellinger guy myself. I mean, who can argue with that? Mookie will likely be the MVP. Agreed. He's great. 3 stolen bases? Come on. Yes. So this actually, it's interesting. It started more citrus, and now it's actually feeling a little woodsier, which is not what I'd expect from adding water. I added quite a bit more here. Now we're probably close to 50%. Now we're moving back toward the wood opening up, letting go a little bit. What chant? Yeah, this is Dodger talk. Day drinking with the Dodgers. God, this has so much going on, guys. Texture, just creamy, rich. This is a great baseball whiskey. It sticks with you. Oh, yeah. Little hints of cinnamon and that herbal backbone. Yeah, we're gonna get to the Four Roses in a little while. I'm saving those, for the end. Usually go single malt, then move to bourbon, if you really want to do it right. This is the Bimber single malt. Thank you. London whiskey. We're moving on to the Virgin Oak here, and I mentioned earlier the Virgin Oak, not my typical favorite. This is of course backwards for everybody, but it's a cool bottle. I like the eagle sort of. I'm sure there's a reference there. I haven't done my research as to what the hell that's about. Part of what I love about getting a new distillery is in the portfolio is hopefully we'll get to work with them for some time and seeing these spirits develop. That said, these are some of the most open and complex young spirits I've ever tasted. I mean, very, very few people in American single malt getting close to this in this age range. Gorgeous color here, almost like has a slight auburn hue. This is a fresh American oak cask. I'd assume in the hogshead size, considering Maybe it's probably a hogshead. I don't know. They're both. Actually, no. This might be this can be bourbon. This is 258 bottles, maybe. I guess you don't have too much loss when they're only 3 years old. I don't know what sort of. I mean, obviously it's still cold and wet in London. Maybe not as cold and wet as Scotland, but it probably gets quite hot in the summer compared to Scotland. But do some more research about exactly how this is. Wow, this is not that planky cardboard junk that I'm used to. Yeah, this is something else. This is a whole new world. It's almost. I wonder if they're doing a heavier char than normal. It's almost a little bit on the bourbony side. Very like roasted marshmallow, sweet caramel. Less spice in the bourbon, less malt, less chocolatey stuff. More burnt sugar. Some citrus. Yeah, this has got a lot going on. Little bit of herbal, anisey, not quite bitter. Some subtle definitely an herbal side to that. Doesn't feel quite as creamy as the bourbon. It's got a little more zinginess to it. Bimber, yes. And for those of you who just showed up, we just tasted these two, Bimber bourbon and Virgin cask. These were the Virgin cask was bottled June 30th, so not very long ago of this year, and it's bottled at 58.1. Typically, that's not unusual to have the alcohol lower. It's cask number 91. Lower quite a bit with new cask because the new wood sucks in more of the spirit in general, and therefore more interaction, more evaporation. So yeah, a little water. I'm getting a little more of the maltiness. The wood has taken a back seat slightly, as expected. I wonder what these would do with a little peat on them. I don't think these are at all peated, but they are hand floor malted, which is unique. I don't think they're done on site. Again, I haven't done my research properly. It's a single farm, it says as well. We just got in all those single farm Waterfords, which are in a very beautiful blue bottle. I have yet to taste them. They just arrived. So this whole single farm thing is pretty big deal these days. I wonder how much it really matters, but certainly Waterford and will show any differences because they distill 3-4 different farms in. Now I'm getting some chocolatiness on this. 3 or 4 different farms in the exact same way, aged them in the exact same way, and voila. So that's the Bimber X Virgin, Virgin cask, not X anything. First fresh American oak. I've added quite a bit of water now. See how it opens up. Yeah, I like that less actually with water. It's now starting to show a little bit of that new wood plankiness, which I don't care for. So now I'm going to add even more water. Just inundate it. Okay, now I don't know if you guys can see it. You can start to see the oils come out. This stuff has a lot of texture. Yeah, now we're starting to see it get to a different level. Around that sort of 46% mark. These are at 58, so it takes a lot of water to get down there. And that's gonna really start to release the aromatics. Oh, now I'm liking this again. Now, ton of citrus. Ooh, and some tropical fruits. Darius is from Poland, hence the eagle. Yes, there you go. Yes, I believe this is Polish owned in London, or not owned, at least operated. I don't know. I don't know the ownership. I don't know anything about these guys, except that they're super cool. We had a great conversation, and they know their stuff, and they're making awesome juice, and we're very excited to be. Oh, look, Whiskey Badger doing all my work for you. Bimber in Polish means moonshine. Great. So, moonshine, not quite, but love the name. Joe from Ford's is here. Yes, my boy. Well, that stuff's pretty good. I have no problems with that. Despite it being virgin American oak single malt. Maybe the first truly great virgin cask. Maybe that's not true, but most of the distilleries aren't really working quite as well with that stuff. Here is the sherry. This is Pedro Jimenez XPX. And you can see the color is quite a bit darker. That's as expected. This barrel, also bottled June the 30th of 2020, 58.5, cask number 46. Pretty small cask. I wonder if this was a hogshead. 315. This must have been a PX Hoggy. 315 bottles. Yeah, because that's not enough for a proper bota. So, getting into the PX Sherry. We have a lot of single malts. It's arriving soon. One finished Glengoyne in PX, 11-year. Freaking dark, delicious little Glengoyne. Oh, wow, this is right in that raisiny PX thing. Some kind of creamy vanilla behind. I wonder if it was American oak. Wouldn't be unusual. The Spanish do often fill American oak to age their wines. Lots of PX. Some nice rich maltiness. I'm gonna have to not spit this out, see what happens. A lot of coffee, toffee, sweet, but the alcohol and the malt keep it straight up. I like this a lot. It doesn't feel overly sweet. I'm gonna add some water, see what happens. I think, believe it or not, despite my first impressions, I think, well, we'll have to evaluate this further. I think the virgin cask might be my favorite of the three. Shocking, but true. Bourbon and a virgin. The PX is lovely as well. Oh, and it's opening up, of course, with a little water, some air. Yeah, it's lovely, and clearly the spirit is high quality. It's not quite as integrated as the other two at this stage. I think this is because the bold, rich malt, the spirit itself has so much texture. I think it's fighting a little bit with the intensity of the PX. I bet this in 3 or 5 years will be next level stuff. But what do I know? Let me do a little. Let me just drown the poor sucker. See what happens. Overall verdict here, Whiskey Badger asked. This would come likely on our March shipment, which will include a number of new casks from Hepburn's, Old Malt Cask Hunter Lang. So we have a whole nother set after what you see online. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at the pre-arrivals that are up so far. And then we'd have 3 casks coming right then, or whatever they can afford to sell us. The price point is going to be in that $100 to $150 range. So they're not inexpensive whiskeys by any means. They're not Chichibu prices, but they're also, I mean, even smaller than Chichibu, and the reputation very much precedes itself. 5 of them. Which did you order? Yeah, someone's saying I ordered 5 of them. Oh, the Bimbers? Oh, this is actually very fun now. Well, maybe I'll eat my words. You know, I often find that with the younger whiskeys, the water is going to do even more than normal to open them up. Wow, I really like that now. Oh, there you go. Almost has like a marzipan-y character, like kind of a graham cracker honeyed note to it. Bimber, the old Bimber sherry cask. That's the PX sherry. These are not available yet. A little preview of what's to come. We're hopefully going to be the exclusive importer for this fabulous product. Well, we won't be the importer, but we'll be exclusive in California. Buy a couple casks if they can get us there. Very exciting stuff. Wow, delish. Okay, so that's seemingly successful little experiment will lead us to the next. I pulled 2 of these samples before they all sold out. You'll notice this includes it's backwards for you. That says 12-year-old. That's 12-and-a-half-year-old Four Roses. I've been selecting barrels from Four Roses for nearly a decade. Actually, yeah, about a decade. I've never been offered a 12-year. I don't know what we did to deserve it, or if it was just a total random act of fate. But we're not going to say no. And for years, we didn't have to travel to the distillery. We'd like to travel, but we could just grab samples. And now, of course, they're not able to receive us. And so for the first time in several years, we were able to evaluate these on our end from home. And so Mandy sent out samples. Sadly, the first time we've selected since dear friend Al Young passed on. But we got 6 samples, and I begged and pleaded, and we were able to secure 5 of them. So gorgeous color on that, beautiful hue, reddish hue, classic bourbon. And this was one of them. This is not only is it a 12-and-a-half-year-old, it's also one of the higher proof ones. Four Roses goes into barrel lower than most, and Yaz Speed is speedy too. Got 2, the OSK and the OESV. This is an OESF. Bottled on June 17th, 2020, 60.5, and this is in warehouse H West. Barrel number is 554T. Apparently this is a nice little lot. I don't know how it got diverted. Usually what happens here is, what happens with these, and I'm told this is, I have no specific information about this, but with Four Roses, what happens is they create their limited editions based on lot samples. So you'll have a particular set of lots that are from the same yeast strain in the same warehouse, distilled on the same day, or and those are used as blend components. And then they maybe say, okay, we need this much of that lot, this much of that lot. They pull the whole lot out, maybe evaluate the various barrels in the blending room, and then maybe they won't take, maybe there are 50 barrels in this lot, and they're using it for one of the limited editions, and they don't need all the barrels. Like, they just, like, we were there when they were blending the Al Youngs, the 50th anniversary, and that had was it a 20-year-old element or a 19-year-old element in it? And Brent was there. He said we had like 80 extra barrels in the 19 because it just didn't make sense in terms of the blend to put maybe 60 barrels, all 80 barrels in. So they used 20 of them, and then you have 60 odd barrels, a 19-year-old, or in this case 12-and-a-half-year-old. Well, where do they go? They're not going to put the 19-year-old in the single barrel program because it's just too silly. I imagine that they'd either, for my company, I would sell those, but I think they get just dumped into the yellow label, which is outrageous sounding, but that's the way it goes, Part of why that yellow label is so shockingly good. And this is gorgeous. Wow. Yeah. You'll note the terminology, the number, the letters there seem confusing. OESF. Only 2 letters ever change, and that is the mash bill and the yeast strain. The other letters refer to the type of whiskey, bourbon, straight bourbon, and so the 2 mash bills. All of Four Roses products are high rye, beyond high rye, compared to other distillers, and so they have a high rye and like a super high rye. And in this case, it's the F yeast strain, which they list as minty, fruity, spicy, full-bodied. And F is like, I either love or hate F. F and O are the ones that I'm like, it's either like I love it or hate it. I'm very much a VK guy. I tend not to like Q, although lots of people do, which is a sort of more floral. And of course, with single barrels, it's, you never know. You can get one that's massively good, and the next one can just be meh. But this is the OESF distilled 12.5 years ago, as of June of 17th, 60.5. Nose is banging, just popping out, lots of spice. I don't get too much mintiness, although it's hard, it's hard once you've sort of told yourself you're gonna smell something to not register it slightly. A lot of lacquer box, exotic wood, fruit. There's a lot going on here. Oh, yeah, that. Oh, it has it's almost candy on the palate. It's very sweet, very forward. Anytime you get one of these old barrels, especially a short fill, like this was only 96 bottles, so was leaking, over oxidation, definitely a concern. You worry about bitterness, astringency. That's the real thing that can take it into a bad range with older barrels, and there's just none of that here. Yeah. Sorry you guys missed out on that one. If you didn't, congratulations. This is, gotta be up there with one of our very top Four Roses to date. This is the OESF 12.5 year. That's a tough one to spit out, but I got stuff to do today. Moving on. OESQ. I was just shitting on Q a second ago, but I like this barrel, so we took it. 9.8 years. It's interesting. This has, the 12 has a finish that's almost like almost on the floral side. Reminds me a little bit of Q. Very Four Rosy. Four Roses-y. And this fabulous little cask was in Warehouse L East, LE, they say. And another high proof one, 61.2. We're not used to seeing them that often up that high. So maybe slightly higher. And, you know, Four Roses is a very consistent aging, although there are some warehouses, particularly H West, which is, you know, tends to offer very good barrels. But they're doing single rack warehousing because their whole idea is, you know, control for the mash bill and the yeast strain, and then consistent aging, and then you can know more or less the flavor profile. Seagram's, I mean, Four Roses exists because Seagram's basically closed plants all throughout the United States, and, you know, Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, and as they were doing that, they for blending purposes, they created these various styles to make up those holes in their portfolio for basically the Seagram's 7 and stuff like that. Only the OESV 10-year 7-month. I love that. OESV is one of my favorite. K and V are easily my favorite, just in terms of consistently being delicious. Wasn't able to grab samples of those two, so I didn't open them today. I will say that I do have a couple left of the OESQ, couple canceled orders. So we have just a few, like 3 or 5 bottles. And the first, like last time, the first guy or lady to email me right now, if you haven't got one already, I don't want you double dipping. I know you bourbon guys. Go ahead and shoot me an email, David Girard, Girard, at KLWines, and it's yours. First pour, pure salted caramel to me. God, that sounds delicious. I'm getting there. Oh, I got it. It definitely has that floral side, though, to it. In the background, some people love that. I'm like medium on floral if it's balanced. Oh, Marvin, you're in. Oh, yeah, I get that salted caramel. That's, yeah, as mentioned, that the first pour was all salted caramel, and then as it opens, more floral comes out. Q, of course, is the floral yeast strain. Floral, rose petal, acacia, banana. Refreshing, medium bodied, they say. I don't know about all that, but there's a lot going on here. You definitely get a rose petal thing. That's no doubt in these. This is pretty special. Can you imagine there was once a time when, like, people didn't want to buy the 9-year-old Four Roses because they just thought the 10-year-olds were so good that they couldn't be bothered with the 9. We used to struggle in some cases to sell these single casks just a few years ago, you know, and God, now they just fly out. It's, you know, obviously it's good for us, but it's pretty impressive, and more whiskey just keeps coming. You know, there are rumors of a slight opening of the floodgates from, I mean, you see the Doc Swinsons, which I talk about often because I'm so into it, and, you know, the first old bourbon we're able to really source in serious quantity for a long time. Yes, we got totally effed on the small batch limited edition. Someone's asking about that from Four Roses. Our normal allocation is like 2 or 3 cases for the company. Right now we're looking at 6 bottles. I've made my complaints known, but apparently things at their local distributor aren't what they used to be, and, you know, it is what it is. It's unlikely we'll get more. So in fact, a tiny amount, maybe 2-3 bottles, will go online, first come, first serve. Yes, ouch is the right term. And the rest will be saved for end of year shenanigans, as it were. Ouch. And the price went up a lot, like double. No, not quite. Well, it went up a lot last year. I think it went up another $50. The biggest bummer about bourbon flying off your shelves is not getting to read your awesome reviews. Is awesome. Oh, that actually makes me so happy. I can still write the reviews if you want. Happy to do it. You shoot me an email if you want my notes. I taste everything, so it does feel like extra work when something isn't even available. But if that's what you want, I'll give it to the people. Some people don't like my flowery language, but if you enjoy it, I'm happy to provide it. Oh, off topic, I love this. Any chance K&L is getting a signatory Buna Stoisha? No. The answer is no. We will not be getting any signatory casts this year. It's unfortunate, but true. There's just not a market for the pricing that their importer and distributor are offering. That's the same cast that we did, I think, sold for very reasonably, are now $80-$90. It's just I can't do it. It's not gonna work for us. Tasting notes on the single barrel Ezras or Rebels. The ones that were released are NorCal Andrews picks. So no, I have another set of barrels coming. I will make sure to include my notes in advance of them arriving for you, friends. I am more than happy to do that for you, just so you have something to go by. Those didn't sell quite as quickly as something like the Four Roses, because it's a new distillery. I'd argue, high proof. It's funny, it's basically 6-year-old Elijah Craig, 5 to 6-year-old Elijah Craig, and 5 or 6-year-old Larceny at higher proofs than the distillery sells them to us for. Elijah Craig, when we get a single barrel, is quite a bit older than that. So I don't think they're not bad values by any means. It's just, it's a new thing. I wish they could do a 7-year statement on the Ezra for us, like the special edition. I wish they could do them in cask strength. They're saying they will do for the next time, although they also said we have to visit, so that'll take some time before we're allowed to do that. Someone's asking a question. So anyway, I will make sure to have those notes up for our next 2 barrels of Ezra. I thought they were quite good. It's just solid Heaven Hill juice at higher proofs and $35-$40. It's pretty solid. On the Scotch topic, your thoughts on the upcoming teaspoon malts coming in? I love them. It's unfortunate that we had to do it, because honestly the teaspooniness of it is inconsequential. There is no quality difference, because we teaspooned before bottling in cask, so we're talking 1 drop among 200 to 500 liters of another spirit. The biggest surprise is that the Lechig was teaspooned with 23-year-old Talisker, which I about jumped out of my seat when I was like, Hunter Lang has 23-year-old Talisker? Because they can't just go out and buy a bottle and throw it in there. Like, it needs to be in cask to make it legal. They need to have in-bond stocks to do the proper blending. Administratively, this is an important aspect of it. So that is that. And I think they're excellent. If you've liked the quality of Hunter Lang's offerings in the past, either in the Hepburn, Old Malt Cask, or Sovereign range, I think you'll enjoy these. I think the prices are extremely reasonable, considering the market and the tariffs and the what have you. So in general, they're going to be great. That said, it's only the first half, and there's a whole bunch more coming in March. We haven't released a few things, and namely, you'll be the first to hear about it here. Some of you sleuthy ones will have noticed online a nice older Bowmore, which is unfortunately getting up to that 25-year range. So everybody who has this stuff wants it to be $500-$600, and it's only $300. Still 3 times as much the last time we sold this vintage, 97. But it's quite special in the old and rare range, and we only took a little bit of that because I just, with the tariffs, that it's an unknown. Like, I don't know how many people want to spend $300 on 23-year-old Bowmore, even though it is exceptional quality. And I'm sure we could have sold probably twice as much, and maybe we'll take another chunk of it in March. But the other ones, you may have watched a while back, I tasted a Tormore that I just absolutely hated on this show, 32-year-old Tormore. They sent another one. So that was delicious in sherry Tormore, which will also be $300-$400, something like that. That's old. Those are not teaspoon. And then we also have a teaspooned Glenfarclas in bourbon, 28-year-old, which is going to be extremely affordable for what it is, like $150. I think I have a 28-year-old Blair Finney, which is single malt, of course, but from Blackadder, which is a very expensive brand to start, but their similar whiskey is $450 on the shelf. Like, it's nuts. So, of course, it's no-name Glenfarclas. So we'll sell it as, we bought 4 casks of it because it was just so good. I couldn't say no. We did bottle 1 under the old and rare label as single malt, so that'll be notably more expensive, about $180, $200 versus $150 for the standard release stuff. And they'll be, they'll be all bottled as like probably Spaceside's Finest, or possibly Spaceside's Finest, or what have you, this sort of terminology. It's going to be awesome. That is the right word for it. They're just delicious, and they're $150 for old. Of course, some of the Glenfarclas lovers will, poo-poo it for not being in sherry, but also it's such an exciting thing to try something that's so unusual for the distillery, which is probably why the stuff exists, is, Glenfarclas fills the cask that they have, and 28 years ago, maybe they did a little stuff for blending or whatever it is, bulk projects, and it goes into bourbon, and voila, here we are, all these years later, selling it for nothing. And it's proper old Speyside. So very, very delicious stuff. That's very exciting. And then a nice old Linkwood. That's the other big boy, which is still, so much whiskey in the pipeline. We are not turning off the spigot. And then in spring, if we're all still here, Bimber and another batch of old malt cask, all teaspooned. Maybe we won't have to teaspoon them. That's why I split it up. Maybe they'll. I don't know how quickly, even if the bureaucratic system is very slow. Even if there is change politically, it's very slow to change. So we'll see. We probably have to do at least one more round. Yes, there is Macallan coming. There is a Macallan coming from Gordon MacPhail. This is kind of big news, actually. They offered us a 21-year-old refill sherry Macallan Spey malt. That's just phenomenal. Cask strength single barrel. And it's, obviously expensive, but like totally in the normal realm of thing, like less than $300. It should be, fingers crossed, if it ever shows up. But we did secure that. They actually had 2. They had an 18-year and a 21-year, and I don't always get it right. I tried to play hardball on the price, and someone else bought it. So anyway, we're not going to do that anymore. And we're working on as well from Gordon MacPhail. We did secure a 20-year-old Kalila that is spectacular, expensive, $200 a bottle, but for what it is, it's totally worth it. One of the few big boy Islas that we'll be able to offer this year. And what else? Oh, a Scapa. That's very, very fun. A dark sherry Scapa. That is really, really exciting stuff. So lots of goodies coming. What was I saying about the Linkwood? Oh, it's going to be 27 years old. Whiskey Badger asked, what was I saying about the Linkwood? 27-year-old Linkwood. Teaspoon Linkwood. I forget what we call it. We have all these goofy names. What do you guys think of the goofy names that I've come up with Andrew? Some of them I like better than others. End of year shenanigans. Whiskey Addicts asks about end of year shenanigans. There is an end of year lottery system for the super rare bottles that our good customers are offered. Actually, it's quite random, so we take a list of our best customers and kind of select out of the list. So, keep buying those exclusives because that qualifies you. Yes, I've tried all the barrels. The 10-year-old Kalila in sherry is fabulous. It's I think only 6 months in sherry, so it's not over the top. It's got a great color. We don't see a whole lot of Kalila. Maybe some of the Kalila purists will say, "Oh, I prefer the crispy, lemony, peaty," but this gives it some depth, and we have another Kalila just straight up coming from Old Particular, which is extremely affordable. We got very, very lucky on that cask, considering the Old Particular Kalila, it does have the tariff on it, so they're very close in price. It's actually an 11-year, so we have the two contrasting styles, and we thought it would be fun. I think we did one with Sovereign, a finish with Sovereign that went over very, very well, but it was only a 6-year-old. So that it's right in that same range. Hunter Lang's doing more and more of these finishing sort of programs, and we dabble. We're a bit old school on the finishing, but we have a couple coming this year that are pretty interesting, and I've got a lot more to say about that, but those will be down the line. That's so lots to come. So sherry. Oh, and then Gordon MacPhail has offered us a Klein Leash, a 15-year-old Klein Leash, which is very, 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 very delicious. Wish I had those samples. I'd drink them right now, but they don't seem to be here. They're in my stash somewhere. Better than SMWS for sure. What? Was there a bad one from SMWS? I don't know. Did I miss that? Whiskey Badger? I don't, now that I'm not connected to SMW, we used to do, weirdly, even though it's not supposed to go retail, we used to do barrels of SMWS with the old importer. Oh, the naming. Yeah. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I mean, we're not really talking about the spirit. What we tried to do is kind of give a hint to where the distillery was, because we can't use the distillery name. I know, I'd buy every barrel of Klein Leach that I can get, trying to work the price down. It's like Gordon MacPhail pricing is pretty high, rightfully so. The quality is excellent. But there's only so much whiskey you can sell at high prices. So, we tried to make the names like about the place. If you drill down, you'll see that a lot of them have to do with, like the Mortlock is like below Vanille. Vanille is the old name for Dufftown. Balvenie is the old name for Dufftown, and things like that. So I thought it was. It's kind of a fun exercise. It's more. It's more an afterthought in the end, because the whiskeys speak for themselves. I don't really care what they cost. And nowadays, people read everything we put out there. Whiskey Addicts asks, how does teaspooning come into play? So the teaspooning is, we've been buying teaspoon malt, blended malt, essentially, for a number of years before tariffs were an issue. No, it's not. This is actually a pretty expert question. The teaspooning is not something that people talk about a lot, and it's done essentially by the big distilleries to trade spirit without compromising their trademarks. So, for instance, Balvenie, the one like we have with Hepburn's Choice, which we sell as John McCrae, this is teaspooned at birth. So they distill a tanker of Balvenie because they make enough. Probably less so these days, but they make enough, and they have blending contracts, and they have to offer these contracts to keep cash flow moving. But they don't want to compromise. They don't want to sell it as Balvenie, so they sell it as a proprietary blend called Burnside, and that even that name Burnside is commercially protected. So they could go after somebody using the term Burnside on their label, although you do occasionally see it from bottlers. And that is likely done. The teaspooning is basically taking another malt. There are 3 distilleries on that site, so it's very easy for them to do that, and putting one drop in to a tanker truck so that you have what they call a blended malt suddenly. To be honest, at this stage, I'm pretty sure they can do it administratively. So they just say, okay, that tanker is blended malt. Don't even bother putting something in there because it doesn't really matter. So we've been buying those casks for quite some time, and the Glengoyne is delicious, by the way. Lacoa 93, and it's nice and dark red PX. That's one we actually bought last year. They couldn't get in onto the ship in time, so it's been sitting in bottle for a little while. Those casks tend to offer incredible values, the teaspoon malts, because there's the only other outlet to sell them is in the blends, and the margins are so much lower on that. Well, that's not true. The margins are higher on the blends, but it's less useful, an old whiskey in a blend. So yeah, you maybe use this many casks, but then you're cutting with grain whiskey, and it's kind of a waste. So they split them to us. We had this idea when the tariffs came around. Hey, why don't we just take our single casks, put a little malt in them, what I would call a homeopathic amount. It's literally 1 drop, maybe 10 CLs, whatever it is. And Brian, you've missed quite a bit. You'll have to come back, and we'll repost it, and you come back and watch the whole thing. A homeopathic amount of malt, and thereby declassifying it from single malt, but not affecting the flavor in any way, shape, or form. And so you get whiskey, single cask whiskeys, cask strength, that aren't single malt, can't use the distillery name. But since we are always explaining our whiskey regardless, and it's like the power of a Daluin or a Chinanich or a whatever it is, that means something to a small slice of the people. But most people, even if they're interested in single malt, they don't have an impression of those distilleries. They're not really selling points. If it's Ardbeg, yeah, you're not going to freaking teaspoon. I mean, you do, because we sold a teaspoon Ardbeg last year. They do, but I wouldn't teaspoon an Ardbeg. Actually, I would if the price were right. But I'm just saying that some distilleries have much more clout, much more value in the name, and even great distilleries, at a certain price point, it doesn't make sense anymore. So, we decided to do this thing. It's a little cheeky, and we kind of came up with some of these goofy names, and the result is whiskeys that are 25% cheaper than they would have been otherwise, and equal in quality, exactly the same, essentially. Hey, thanks for the birthday wishes. Oliver is 4. It's true. It's amazing. He is like a man. Although he did suddenly start waking up in the middle of the night, which is super difficult. Exhausted. Woke up twice last night. It's awesome. Trying to figure that out. I've not used scotch yet, but that's what my grandmother would use. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. Other producers like Old Particular They won't do it. They don't. So we had to work really hard to get those prices in range, and you'll see, you know, the tariff most affects us on the very expensive whiskeys. It is not like Alba. Yeah, well, Alba's, you know, yeah, it's a hogshead, so it would be similar in style to that. That's correct. Someone's just asked, for those who are watching later, the Owler 25 that we have from Old Particular is not in a